Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video. This is going to be another episode of building Kamino in Lego. I have a lot of really good progress this week. I think this is by far one of the most exciting weeks of building that I've shown to you guys. Normally this is where I would do the donation shoutouts, but we didn't actually have any Kamino streams between the last update and this update. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the video, guys. I started off this week by going ahead and replacing that main internal structure, which holds up all of these frame elements here. If you didn't tune in last week, the issue was I basically just made this thing at the complete wrong height because all of these were at the wrong angle. So I got these angles corrected, and then I went ahead and basically made this smaller, lowered it down, and now you can see most of those little frame sections are finally connected to this. I do still need to extend this back in order to accommodate these last two on the ends, but that is a pretty easy fix, no problem there. This made me really happy because now I have a pretty good view at what the interior of this dome is going to look like. I've had a lot of people ask, and maybe this will be our question of the day segment, but basically had questions like, how I'm going to cover the cross section of this Kamino dome up. I'm just going to use some gray bricks, or what was my plan? Well, really the only reason that this is a half dome as opposed to being a full dome is because I do plan on incorporating an interior, and this is basically going to be the embryo room that we see in Star Wars Episode 2. I'm really going to use Battlefront as my primary source of reference material, because I believe in Episode 2 there's like two separate areas. One of them is the embryo room, and the other is kind of like the clone training room. Battlefront, however, has taken the liberty of combining those two, which is nice for me because that means I have reference material that allows me to have both of those represented here in this one dome, because I have other plans for that dome over there. So for those of you who are curious about what the heck's going to happen on this side of the mock, there will be an interior. It's going to be the embryo / training room, so we'll have large tubes coming up with some floating clone babies, and we'll also have down here on the ground level the clones training. Might even have a little helmet dispenser thing and a few other fun scenes happening on the ground level there. So super excited to get to that at some point, but this is, I guess, now our best look at the space we have to work with. I will say I was kind of hoping I'd have a little bit taller of an area to work with, but this is still pretty sizable. I think I can work with this pretty fine. I think more than anything, I am happy that I ended up with a lot of surface area down here. That was probably my biggest concern, just having enough space on the ground to be able to, have a good amount of those clone cadets training, because if I didn't have, enough space for that, it just would not have looked good enough. So my idea is I'll have like a center structure that'll hold this up, which is actually accurate. So shout out to the designers for making something that is actually going to translate to Lego pretty well. I'm going to have like the hallway that Obi-Wan comes through come out of either of these sides, and I might even have it continue to the other side, or I might not. It'll depend on that. Depend on what works the best, I guess. And then we'll have the tubes coming up kind of in random places. And then, like I said, on the ground, we'll have the clones training. And I might even have it kind of elevate as we get closer to the edges of the walls. So there you go. Hope you guys have a good understanding of what exactly, at least this side of the mock, is going to entail. I went ahead and took the liberty to use some of the parts that had come in from some previous Bricklink orders to clean up the wall sections on this build. I know I had constructed quite a few sections that were just missing parts, or I had substituted in different color parts with the hopes of getting Bricklink orders in and being able to replace them down the line. Well, now is that time, which actually made me quite happy. It's always kind of annoying when you have to do that and just have something sitting there in the complete, obviously wrong colors. Shout out to the people who understand this. I know back when I first started doing these series, a lot of people would be like, if I did this, it'd be like, oh, why is this section red? This should be gray. I'm just like, guys, calm down. It's gonna get replaced. I'm just putting in filler parts for the meantime. So that being said, I'm really happy to just get these sections filled in with the parts that they're supposed to be using. Unfortunately, however, one of the sellers that I ordered from, I needed 1x4 arches to fill in one of the light fixtures. However, they sent me 1x3 arches instead, which honestly, like, that's kind of a hard mistake to make. I feel like 1x4 and 1x3 arches definitely looked stink. So that was kind of annoying. I didn't message the seller. Hopefully they'll just have the parts be able to send me as opposed to me having to order them from someone else. I guess as a side tangent, if you are a Bricklink seller and you end up either shorting someone parts or not sending them the right parts, I do think it should be the responsibility of the seller to not only refund the cost of the parts, but also to refund shipping. Because if I'm a buyer and I'm in that position, then I already had to pay you shipping, but now I'm gonna have to pay shipping twice to get the right parts from someone else. So I do think it should just be on the responsibility of the seller, which will hopefully keep sellers a little bit more, I don't know, diligent about making sure it doesn't happen. Because like if I have to pay double shipping just because of the mistake that a seller made, I don't know, it's kind of unfair. All right, and here is where the bulk of my building went for this week. It went into constructing all these panels that are going to go on the Kamino dome. I believe right now I already have 4 sections of panels. As a section, I'm going to count basically a column like that. And this is 6 more added to it. And with all of these combined with the ones that are already on the dome, this should just about fill up right under half of the dome, which I guess is halfway towards the goal that I set out for myself on the last episode. My goal was to basically finish up the whole dome, but having been doing this for so many hours, that really was just not possible in the amount of time I had. But I think seeing half of it will be just as nice, because you can just kind of look at it from one side, and at that point it does look like it's almost full. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through some of the cooler techniques that I thought I used on this. So starting with the top row, I had this guy right here. I quite liked having this black design here, and also with this just angled piece in there, threw a couple of cheese slopes in there to make that work. I guess one thing that is worth noting is that I did actually base all of these panels off of actual reference material of the Kamino domes that were used as, I guess, studio models whenever they were actually filming for Attack of the Clones. So initially I was kind of concerned. I thought I didn't really have enough reference material to do the entire dome, well, both of them actually. But being able to look at it now, I think we're actually in a good position, which for me as a builder, I really do like. I like having things be as accurate as possible. And also I think just having that reference material, sometimes it's cool to take some creative liberties, and I definitely did do that with some of the smaller details that are kind of harder to see. Like, for example, these skate pieces that I wedged in there. That's not really meant to represent any particular detail that I found. But with having that reference material and being able to have it one-to-one, I feel like you just get a much better feel for the design language and philosophy that would be used on the surfaces of those domes, and everything just looks consistent. And also, like I said, for me as a builder, I like being accurate, so it kind of worked out. So basically all the big details you see, like the stripes and such, those are pretty much accurate to what you would see on the dome to the best of my building abilities. Just with the technique I'm using, some things weren't necessarily possible. And then with some of the smaller details, those were things that I thought just looked nice and would fill in those spaces and just give it that next level of attention, because like with the studio model, the only pictures I have don't get you close enough to be able to really, have like one-to-one details, so to speak. I guess if we want to check out some more nice panels that I did, I really was a fan of this one. Had the very light bluish gray Technic lift arms going all throughout there. Both of these are actually bookended with some old gray pieces here, so you'll see there's like a stripe of old gray going all the way down, and then there's just the standard light bluish gray. If you need help figuring out all these colors, and if you've never seen very light bluish gray, for example, I'll link you to one of the previous updates I did on this. I kind of went through and broke down the various shades of gray that I'll be using in this mock. So if you're looking at this and you're confused, like, what even is that? Is that white? No, that's not white. That is actually very light bluish gray. I also had a little patch of old gray in here as well. It's kind of hard to tell on camera, I feel, and in person it's a little bit easier to see the differences between the old gray and the new gray on this paneling. But basically, this whole section right here, that is all old gray. One of the sections that I was super, super proud of, and I can't wait to see it all come together, are these 3 panels right here. So when they're lined up, they're going to kind of make a pattern like this. And I'm basically going to construct the little inserts that go between these to also carry that dark gray between, and basically complete that line. And then the one right here, which I've not built yet, is basically going to be a mirrored version of this one, so it'll close it off over there. That was like a detail that I saw in some reference material of Kamino domes, and I was like, man, if I could pull that off, that'd actually make a pretty nice detail on the Kamino domes. And from what I've been able to do, it's actually working out quite well. So super happy with this. You can see got some more old gray weathering in there, and I think once we line all these up on the actual dome, like, it's gonna be a really cool looking detail slash pattern. And then finally, this is the lower section of panels here. I think this one is by far my favorite. This one just looks really cool. I like having the extruding details there. I know if you look at the actual like surfaces of the domes, you don't see a lot of extruding details, but I did want to include some. I think it just, I don't know, it looks nice, and it just gives it a little bit more of variety. So I went with it, and I don't regret it at all. I think it actually looks pretty cool. And then finally, I think I wanted to point out this one right here, using kind of a newer piece here, using a couple of newer pieces. So we got the 4x4 tile integrated right here, which I like because when it comes to this paneling, you know, I have a lot of plates and bricks that I use, but I also like integrating some tiles in there just to give different shapes to the paneling. I think that it just makes it look a lot more organic and a lot more patchwork like you would come to expect from the surface of like a Star Wars metal ship hull structure or something like that. And also like using these 1x2 tiles with the rounded off edges. I think those look really cool right there, and they're recessed by like half a plate, so I don't know, looks pretty nice. So all in all, these are the panels that we're going to be adding to the Kamino dome. Those were my older ones, my templates that I used to basically figure out all the sizing for these. But now that we have this done, let's go ahead and attach these to the dome. Okay, if I'm being honest, this probably has to be some of my favorite progress that I've ever made on this build. Seeing this dome come together with all these panels, all these detailed panels specifically, makes me so happy. And I think your first question is going to be, why are there gaps in here? The primary reason is just because I didn't build all of these little filler sections, which kind of bridge the gap between those. That'll probably be what I end up doing on the stream because it's nice and repetitive. And actually will make quite a big difference having that filled in. So sorry you can't get the full enclosed view, but these are the sections that took the longest amount of time and took the most attention to detail, because they are actually detailed sections as opposed to these, which are literally just kind of tiles connected together. So super happy about the way that this came out. I am just ecstatic to see this mock just coming together so, not necessarily quickly, but just so consistently, because, you know, I took so much time off of building it. So the spacing is a slight issue. I'm going to have to separate a few of these to get them to be the right distance apart, which is just going to involve kind of moving them around at the top up there, but not a big issue whatsoever. It will be something I can knock out pretty easily. I'm thinking honestly what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the middle one, and I'm just going to attach them one by one with the panels and then space them equally that way until we get to the very end, as opposed to trying to do them all at once and really just do guesswork. So I think that this is just so cool. You're really starting to see kind of what my vision was for this build in terms of having a big giant dome. So it is coming together. This thing is massive. I said that last time, and having the panels on it makes it look even more massive. Like seriously, the camera just does not do it justice whatsoever. Like you got to see this thing up close in person. I'm not quite sure where I will be taking this quite yet, but if you do get the chance once I announce it, I definitely you got. This is a mock you're gonna definitely want to see in person by the time it's all said and done. So, really, that's all I got for you guys this week. I'm pretty happy with the progress. Seeing these panels on this build is very fulfilling for me, and if we can just get that other side finished up as well as get the filler in there, if by maybe not this upcoming update, fingers crossed the orders come in, but if they don't, I'm not going to make assumptions. Even if we can just get most of this covered up by the next update, as well as the filler sections in there, I think that will go a super long way, and it'll be a pretty big milestone because aesthetically from the outside, outside of a few small tweaks like lights and maybe these little railing sections here, that'll give us a pretty good view of what the dome is going to look like really on that side, because that side, it's going to be the flat dome, kind of like what we have here so far. This dome is still going to get quite a bit taller because we're going to have kind of the cone section come up, and I'm honestly getting goosebumps just thinking about it because it's going to look really cool once we get to that point. But all in all, good looking mock so far. We got all those wall sections cleaned up for the most part outside of those 1x4 arches, which they're kind of right there, and Stiller just sent me the wrong size. I got 1x3s instead. So hopefully by the next update we'll have that fully finished. All the walls will be clean. I'll probably add as many of the railing sections as I have built. Only reason I haven't really invested too much time into that, one, it's not a huge priority, but also I'm thinking about replacing these because I use a bunch of like 1x2s here for this, but I don't love the way it looks. It just doesn't look as clean as the way 2x2s would look. So I'm thinking about replacing these with 2x2 slopes instead of a bunch of 1x2s. So if I do that, I'm going to basically have to take all these apart and then build the rest of them, which I never built. That'll go around the other side. So that is something that I will have to take into consideration. And then probably, once we finish up the top, it'll definitely make sense to start working on these bottom panels again. This is just one of the ones that I did last time. But basically, starting to clean up the bottom of these domes. I think if I could do that as well within the next few updates, that'll really give us a good view of just what these domes are going to look like. And then we can move to the interior, which I'm sure a lot of you are excited to see. So that's going to wrap things up. We can go ahead to the outro of the video now. And there we go. That's going to finish up Kamino for the week. I hope you enjoyed seeing all the progress that has been done on this build. Of course, in the comment section below, let me know what you're thinking so far. I'm just so excited, especially at this point. I worked really, really hard on those panels to get a good amount of detail, but not necessarily too much detail, but also just to get it as close to the reference material as possible. And I definitely think I succeeded in that. So moving forward to the next update, my hope is going to be to at least finish off, most of the panels on the other side. That is going to be contingent on whether or not a few parts orders come in. I have a lot of gray, but I think the 1x2 bricks in particular were one of the few things that I was really running low on, so it's going to be very contingent on parts that will come in. But I'm definitely going to be streaming Kamino this week, and hopefully we'll be able to knock out a bunch of those little filler sections so you won't see all the gaps in there. So tuning in next week will be must-see for sure to see more of the panels filled in, but then also to not see the panels with the gaps between them. So a lot of exciting things are happening with the mock right now. That's going to finish the video though, guys. If you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.